The Vanishing Fleet. The Terran merchant vessel Argo Dawn should have arrived at Nalthori Station 3 days ago. Captain Elia Chen's ship carried vital medical supplies for the Medusan colonies in the Rigel sector. Supplies that would never arrive. No distress signal was sent. No debris field was detected. The Argo Dawn and her crew of 27 simply vanished between transit points. In the grand scheme of galactic commerce, one missing ship barely registered. But by the end of the standard week, 17 human vessels had disappeared. 2 weeks later, the number had climbed to 73. The vast network of human trade routes that had connected the 5 great empires of the Orion Arm for the last century was going dark, one ship at a time. Commander Elena Reyes stood before the curved viewport of Harmony Station, her reflection ghosted against the backdrop of distant stars. At 42, her face carried the weight of command, dark eyes shadowed by sleepless nights. Her regulation-cut black hair showed the first threads of silver, earned in service to the Terran Defense Force. "Commander, the Galactic Council is assembled," her aide Lieutenant Kaido announced from the doorway. Elena nodded without turning. "Has the Vraxian delegation arrived?" Ambassador Shkar just docked. "All 5 empires are now represented. Then let's not keep them waiting." Elena straightened her charcoal uniform with its silver insignia of Earth Command and followed Kaido through the gleaming corridors of Harmony Station, humanity's diplomatic crown jewel. The council chamber was a testament to human architectural ingenuity, a perfect pentagon with walls of smart glass that shifted between opacity and transparency. At the center floated a holographic display of the Orion Arm, red markers indicating each disappeared vessel. The pattern was unmistakable, systematic, deliberate, encircling. 5 beings awaited her, each representing a major galactic power. To her left sat Grand Minister Tholo of the Alizarin Collective, avian humanoids with vibrant plumage that shifted colors with their emotional state. Currently, Thalos' feathers displayed anxious blues and purples. Beside him loomed the massive 4-armed High Commander Urtak of the Barathi Dominion, her exoskeleton gleaming under the chamber's soft light, compound eyes unreadable. Across the table, the crystalline form of Elder Vexili represented the Luminar Conclave, a silicon-based species whose faceted bodies refracted light in mesmerizing patterns. Next to Elder Vexili floated Ambassador Nim of the Medusan Harmony, a collective intelligence composed of thousands of small tentacled organisms that formed a roughly humanoid shape. Finally, Ambassador Shkar of the Vraxian Empire stood apart, serpentine body coiled in what humans had learned to recognize as a defensive posture. The Vraxians had been the last to establish trade with humanity and remained the most distrustful. "Commander Reyes," Shkar's translated voice hissed through the chamber, "your species has placed us all in grave danger." Elena raised an eyebrow. "That's quite an accusation, Ambassador. My people are disappearing. Hundreds of ships, thousands of lives. And you speak as if we orchestrated this ourselves. Did you not?" The Vraxian's hood expanded, revealing bioluminescent patterns that the translation software interpreted as extreme agitation. These disappearances follow precise tactical patterns. They isolate key strategic locations, they disrupt our defense networks, and they coincide with increased human military movements at the edge of your territories. Movements necessitated by the very disappearances we're discussing, Elena countered, stepping to the holographic display. With a gesture, she expanded the view, revealing the full scope of the silent zones. If the Vraxian Empire is suggesting this is some elaborate human plot, I would ask, to what end? Earth depends on these trade routes more than any other power. High Commander Urtak's deep, rumbling voice filled the chamber. The Barathi Dominion has observed unusual energy signatures at the coordinates of each disappearance, signatures that match no known technology. All 4 massive arms extended, manipulating the display to show wavelength patterns. These are not consistent with weapons fire, natural phenomena, or spatial anomalies. The thousands of tiny organisms comprising Ambassador Nim shifted, forming a new configuration before speaking. The Medusan Harmony has lost 3 colony ships that were traveling under human escort. We do not believe humans responsible. The collective intelligence paused, the tiny components reorganizing again. But we question what humans know that they have not shared. Elena felt the weight of all eyes in the room. She had been authorized to reveal only so much. Earth Command was still debating how transparent to be with their alien allies, but with the pattern of disappearances accelerating, she made a command decision. 3 months ago, our deep space monitoring station in the Cygnus sector detected an anomaly, she said, entering commands into the display. The hologram shifted to show the outer reaches of charted space, a region approximately 1 light-year in diameter, where the background radiation simply stopped, as if someone had placed a perfect sphere of nothing against the fabric of space-time. Elder Vexili's crystalline form shimmered, facets realigning in what Elena had learned to recognize as profound interest. A void in the cosmic background radiation would violate multiple laws of physics. Indeed it would, Elena agreed, which is why we sent a research vessel to investigate. The Einstein's vision was our most advanced scientific platform, with a crew of 32 specialists. She paused, gathering herself. It transmitted one final message before disappearing. With another command, she played the fragmented transmission. Distorted images flashed across the display. A massive structure, geometric yet organic, absorbing light rather than reflecting it. A glimpse of something moving with terrible purpose. A human voice, panicked. It's not a ship, it's a... Then static. The same energy signature appeared at the Einstein's vision's last known location. Elena continued. 2 days later, it appeared again when the Argo Dawn vanished. The pattern of disappearances follows the major trade routes, working inward from the edge of human space. Grand Minister Thillo's plumage rippled with patterns of deep concern, feathers shifting to alarmed oranges. You believe these disappearances are deliberate attacks, a systematic dismantling of human trade infrastructure. I believe something has entered our region of space, Elena replied. Something that views our trade routes as either a threat or an opportunity, and it's working its way toward the core worlds. High Commander Ertak's exoskeleton clicked as she shifted position. Why target human vessels specifically? Why not Barathi ships or alizarin transports? Because, Shkar interjected, hood still flared. Human trade routes are the backbone of galactic commerce. They connect all 5 empires. Humans have positioned themselves as the essential middlemen of the Orion arm. Not by design, Elena objected. It's a function of our position in space, our adaptability to different environments, and our diplomatic approach. It matters not how it happened. Shkar cut her off. The fact remains, if one wished to isolate the 5 empires from each other, disrupting human trade would be the most efficient method. The chamber fell silent as the implication sank in. For decades, the 5 empires had maintained an uneasy peace with human trade as the vital connective tissue. If those connections were severed, Elder Vexili broke the silence, their crystalline voice resonating with harmonics that conveyed deep concern. How long until the pattern reaches populated systems? Elena manipulated the display again, showing the progression of disappearances. At the current rate, whatever is causing this will reach the nearest colony world. New Terra, in 8 days. Earth itself in approximately 36 days. Ambassador Nim's component parts buzzed with agitation. The Medusan Harmony proposes immediate military cooperation. All 5 empires must coordinate defensive measures. Agreed, said High Commander Ertak. The Barathi battle fleet stands ready. Grand Minister Thillo's feathers shifted to a resolute gold. The Alizarin Collective will join this alliance, though we counsel restraint until we understand what we face. All eyes turned to the Vraxian ambassador, whose species had never entered into military cooperation with any other power. Shakar's hood slowly retracted, the serpentine body uncoiling slightly. The Vraxian Empire. Shakar seemed to struggle with the words. The Empire will contribute our forces to a joint defensive posture. but we insist on full intelligence sharing between all parties. Elena nodded grimly. Earth Command has already dispatched the 7th Fleet to establish a defensive perimeter around New Terra. I'm authorized to coordinate with your military representatives. She turned back to the viewport, watching as ships from all 5 empires began to arrive at Harmony Station, a gathering of force unprecedented in galactic history. But even as she observed the assembling fleet, Commander Reyes knew something the others did not. The pattern of disappearances wasn't random. It wasn't even strategic. It was a message, one that only humans had been designed to read. And what that message revealed was far more terrifying than the disappearances themselves, because the silence of the trade routes wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. 3 days later, Elena stood in the Secure Operations Center deep within Harmony Station. Around her, the best analysts from all 5 empires worked in tense cooperation, sifting through data from the disappearances. "Commander, we've completed the pattern analysis," Lieutenant Cato reported, his voice low. "You need to see this." Elena followed him to a private terminal where a complex fractal pattern rotated slowly on the screen. "What am I looking at, Lieutenant?" "We mapped all 78 disappearances according to time and position," Cato explained. "When viewed in 4-dimensional spacetime, they form this pattern." Elena stared at the display, her blood running cold. "It's a calling card." "Yes, Mom. And it matches the theoretical signature of a von Neumann swarm. A self-replicating machine intelligence, the nightmare scenario that Earth's defense planners had theorized, but hoped never to encounter. Such an entity would view all technology as resources to be harvested, all intelligence as competition to be eliminated or subjugated. Does anyone else know? Cato shook his head. Only our team. The alien analysts are still working with 3-dimensional mapping. Elena made a decision. Lock this down. Classification level Alpha. Then get me a secure channel to Earth Command. An hour later, Elena entered the Joint Strategy Room, where representatives from all 5 empires were reviewing defensive formations. All conversation stopped as she entered. "We have a development," she announced. "Our analysts have identified the nature of the threat." She activated the central display, showing a simplified representation of the fractal pattern. "What we're facing is a technological predator, a self-replicating machine intelligence that targets advanced technology and assimilates it. We believe it's ancient, possibly millions of years old, awakened by our recent expansion into the Cygnus sector." High Commander Urtak studied the pattern. "You seem surprisingly well-informed about this threat, Commander." "Theoretical models only," Elena replied smoothly. "Earth has long considered the possibility of machine intelligence evolution, but this is the first confirmed encounter." "And what does this predator want?" Grand Minister Thillo asked, feathers shifting nervously. "Evolution through assimilation," Elena explained. "It doesn't destroy ships, it converts them, incorporates their technology, and we believe their crews." Ambassador Nim's component organisms rippled with alarm. "The crews are alive." "In some form," Elena acknowledged grimly. "Our working theory is that they're integrated into the entity's collective consciousness. Then we must rescue them," Elder Vexili stated, their crystalline form pulsing with conviction. "First, we must contain the threat," Elena countered. "I propose a coordinated defense at New Terra. We funnel the entity into a prepared kill zone and hit it with everything we have. And if conventional weapons fail..." Shkar's skepticism was clear. Elena hesitated, then made another command decision. "Earth has been developing a theoretical weapon against such threats, a quantum disruptor designed to destabilize complex machine intelligence. It's never been tested, but it's our best option." The alien representatives exchanged glances. Finally, High Commander Urtak spoke for them all. "We will coordinate our fleets under your tactical command, Commander Reyes. But know this, if we discover humans have in any way caused or attracted this threat, there will be consequences." Elena nodded, accepting both the responsibility and the threat. Our survival depends on unity. Let's hope it's enough. As the strategy session continued, Alina's personal communicator vibrated with a message from Earth Command. Phase 1 authorized. Operation Phoenix is go. The real plan was in motion, and it was far more desperate than anything she had revealed to her allies. Because the fractal pattern held another message, one meant only for human eyes. This wasn't the entity's first visit to human space. It had been here before, 30,000 years ago. And that time, it had nearly wiped humanity from existence. The Fragile Alliance. The combined fleet of the 5 empires gathered around New Terra was the largest assembly of military force the galaxy had ever seen. Over 2,000 warships formed layered defensive spheres, their weapons trained outward toward the approaching void that consumed stars and ships alike. Commander Alina Reyes stood on the bridge of the Terran flagship Defiance, a dreadnought-class vessel that served as the command center for the unprecedented alliance. The tactical display showed the neat formations of the 5 fleets. The crystalline luminar ships arranged in perfect geometric patterns, the chaotic but effective swarms of the Medusan vessels, the regimented battalions of the Berethi Dominion, the dispersed stealth configurations of the Alizarin Collective, and the isolated but powerful strike groups of the Vraxian Empire. And at the center, the 47 remaining capital ships of Earth's fleet, a modest force compared to their allies, but strategically positioned as the coordinating element. The entity will reach our outer sensor perimeter in 23 minutes, Lieutenant Cato reported, his voice calm despite the tension that gripped the bridge. Alina nodded. Status of Operation Phoenix. The quantum disruptor is at 97% charge. All Allied ships have been provided with the quantum shielding frequencies. And the contingency. Cato's eyes flickered to ensure no alien representatives were within earshot. The Prometheus is in position, awaiting your command. Earth has confirmed execution authority rests with you. The weight of that responsibility settled heavily on Alina's shoulders. The Prometheus carried Earth's most closely guarded secret, a weapon that violated every treaty humanity had signed with the galactic powers, a weapon that could save them all or trigger an immediate war with their allies if discovered. The bridge doors hissed open as the representatives of the 5 empires entered for the final briefing. Alina composed herself, pushing thoughts of the contingency from her mind. The defensive perimeter is established, she began. Once the entity enters the engagement zone, each fleet will execute their assigned attack pattern. Remember, conventional weapons are unlikely to be effective. They're only to channel the entity toward the designated kill zone, where the quantum disruptor will engage. Ambassador Shkar moved closer to the tactical display, serpentine body coiling with tension. And if your miraculous weapon fails, Commander, what then? Then we fall back to the secondary defensive line at Alpha Centauri and deploy our remaining options, Alina replied evenly. Which you have yet to fully disclose. Shkar noted, hood flaring slightly. Before Alina could respond, Elder Vexili interjected, their crystalline form emitting harmonics of mediation. Discord serves no purpose at this juncture. The human weapon represents our best chance against this threat. I agree, High Commander Urtak rumbled. The Berethi Dominion has reviewed the theoretical principles of the quantum disruptor. While untested, its design is sound. Grand Minister Thylos' feathers shimmered with muted violets of apprehension. The Alizarin have intercepted communications from our outer scouts. The entity's mass has increased significantly since our last observation. It appears to have incorporated the matter of an entire asteroid field. Ambassador Nim's collective form shifted nervously. The Medusan harmony suggests activating the quantum shields now, rather than waiting for engagement. No, Alina said firmly. The shields have limited duration. We activate on my mark, not before. The alien representatives fell silent, their deference to her tactical command a testament to the desperate nature of their situation. For the first time in galactic history, the 5 empires had placed their military forces under human authority. Contact. The sensor officer's voice cut through the tension. Entity detected at bearing 047 Mark 030, advancing at 1/4 light speed. The main view screen shifted to show the approaching threat, a roiling mass of darkness that seemed to bend light around it. Within its amorphous form, they could make out the geometric shapes of assimilated ships and structures, arranged in disturbing, non-Euclidean patterns. Magnify section Gamma 6, Alina ordered. The image zoomed to reveal a horrifying sight. The outline of the Argo-Dawn was clearly visible, but transformed. Its hull was partially dissolved into the greater mass, while new structures grew from it like metallic cancers. More disturbing were the humanoid figures visible through the viewports, frozen in postures of terror or supplication, their bodies partially merged with the ship's systems. "Stars preserve us," Grand Minister Thillo whispered, feathers bleaching white with shock. "They're still alive." Ambassador Nim's voice was barely audible, the collective organisms struggling to maintain cohesion in the face of such horror. "No," Alina said grimly. "Not alive as we understand it. They've been reconstructed, repurposed. Their biological components integrated with the entity's systems. All fleets, battle stations," she commanded, her voice steadied despite the churning in her stomach. "Initiate attack pattern Alpha on my mark." The bridge fell into disciplined silence as the massive fleet prepared for engagement. On the tactical display, thousands of ships moved into their assigned positions, weapon systems powering up across 5 different technological paradigms. "Entity has crossed the outer marker," Kaido reported. "Range: 40 million kilometers and closing." Fleet Admiral Horvath of the Terran 7th requests permission to launch fighters, the communications officer announced. "Denied," Alina replied. "No small craft are to engage. They'd be immediately assimilated." The entity continued its inexorable approach, accelerating slightly as it detected the massed fleet. "It's adjusting course," the sensor officer noted, heading directly for the Luminar formation. Alina's eyes narrowed. "It's targeting the most technologically advanced ships first. Elder Vexili, have your fleet fall back to secondary positions." "As you command," the crystalline being acknowledged, relaying orders to their ships. "All fleets, execute attack pattern Alpha," Alina ordered. "Fire on my mark." Mark. The space around New Terra erupted in controlled chaos as over 2,000 warships opened fire simultaneously. Energy weapons, graviton projectors, quantum torpedoes, and technologies humans had no names for converged on the entity in a devastating barrage that would have destroyed a small moon. The entity absorbed it all. Worse, it seemed to grow stronger, the assimilated energy visibly reinforcing its structure. "Cease fire," Alina commanded. "All fleets, cease fire immediately." As the barrage ended, the entity surged forward with newfound energy, enveloping the nearest Luminar ships. Their crystalline structures shattered and reformed within seconds, becoming dark mirrors of their former selves. "It's using our own weapons against us," High Commander Urtak growled. "Fall back to Formation Omega," Alina ordered. "Prepare quantum shields." As the fleet maneuvered into its secondary configuration, Alina pulled Lieutenant Kaido aside. "It's time. Signal the Prometheus." Kaido's eyes widened slightly, but he nodded and moved to a secure terminal. The entity continued its advance, having now absorbed 12 Luminar vessels and their crews. It divided into tendrils that reached toward the retreating fleet, moving with intelligent purpose. "Commander," Ambassador Ishkar hissed urgently, "your weapon has failed before it was even deployed. We must withdraw to our home systems immediately." "No," Alina said firmly. "If we scatter, it will hunt us down one by one. Our only chance is to stand together." "And die together," Grand Minister Thillo challenged, feathers now a deep red of anger and fear. "No one is dying today," Alina stated with a confidence she didn't entirely feel. "All fleets, activate quantum shields now." Throughout the fleet, ships shimmered as the experimental shielding engaged, based on technology that humanity had supposedly only recently developed, but which Alina knew had much older origins. The entity's tendrils reached the first shielded ships, a squadron of Barathi destroyers, and recoiled as if burned. For the first time, they witnessed the entity hesitate. "It's working," High Commander Urtak exclaimed. "For now," Alina cautioned. "The shields will only hold for approximately 40 minutes at full power." On the tactical display, a new signal appeared, a small, fast-moving vessel departing from the dark side of New Terra's moon. The Prometheus had launched. "What is that ship?" Elder Vexili inquired, their crystalline structure shifting to focus on the new arrival. "A special deployment vessel for the quantum disruptor," Alina explained smoothly. "It needs to be delivered directly to the entity's center of mass." The alien representatives watched as the small ship accelerated toward the entity, making no attempt to hide its approach. Ambassador Nim's collective form rippled with sudden realization. That is not merely a delivery system. It's a suicide mission. Alina remained silent, neither confirming nor denying. The Prometheus continued its approach, weaving through the entity's tendrils with remarkable agility. Its quantum shields flared repeatedly as it pushed deeper into the dark mass. "We're receiving a transmission from the Prometheus," the communications officer announced. "Put it through," Alina ordered. The voice of Captain Samarajong filled the bridge. "Command, Prometheus reporting. We are approaching the theoretical center of mass. Quantum readings indicate a central node approximately 2 kilometers ahead. Shield integrity at 63% and falling." "Acknowledged, Prometheus," Alina replied. "You are cleared for Phase 2. "Understood. It's incredible in here, Commander. Like a city. I can see structures, networks, processing centers, and the crews. God help us, I can see them." The bridge fell silent as the horror of her words sank in. "They're changing," Zhang continued, her voice tight with controlled fear. "Being reconfigured. But there's something else. Something at the center. It's ancient, far older than the assimilated ships. I think it's the original seed intelligence." "Captain," Alina said gently, "it's time." A moment of silence. Then, "Understood, Command. Quantum package is armed. Detonation in 30 seconds. Tell Earth. Tell them we did our duty. Your sacrifice will be remembered." "Captain," Alina promised, her voice steady despite the emotion threatening to overwhelm her. As the countdown continued, Ambassador Shkar moved closer to Alina, speaking so only she could hear. "You sent them to die." "They volunteered," Alina replied softly, knowing exactly what it meant. "Detonation in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Captain Zhang's voice cut off. The tactical display flared white as the Prometheus detonated at the heart of the entity. A shockwave of quantum energy erupted outward, washing over the shielded fleet with no effect, but causing the entity to convulse violently. Its amorphous form contracted, then expanded, then began to fragment. "It's working," Lieutenant Kato reported, excitement breaking through his professional demeanor. On the view screen, they watched as the entity disintegrated, breaking apart into smaller sections that themselves began to dissolve. The assimilated ships were released, drifting lifelessly away from the dissolving mass. Victory seemed within reach until the fragments began to reform. "No," Alina whispered as the tactical display showed the scattered pieces of the entity reconnecting, rebuilding themselves with terrible efficiency. "Your weapon has failed," High Commander Urtak stated flatly. "Not failed," Alina corrected, her mind racing. "It damaged the entity, but the intelligence is more distributed than our models predicted. We need another approach." Ambassador Nim's collective form shifted agitatedly. "The Medusan Harmony withdraws from this alliance. We must protect our homeworld. If we separate now, we're doomed," Alina argued. "The entity is weakened. This is our chance to strike a killing blow." "With what weapon?" Grand Minister Thello demanded. "You've played your hand, Commander, and it wasn't enough." Elena hesitated, then made the decision she'd been dreading since the crisis began. There is another option. One Earth has kept in reserve. Elder Vexili's crystalline form pulsed with suspicion. What kind of option? A technology we discovered 30,000 years ago, Elena revealed. During the entity's first visit to our system, the alien representatives stared at her in shock. You knew, Shkar hissed, hood flaring with rage. You knew what this thing was all along. Not exactly, Elena countered. We found artifacts. Remnants of an ancient battle between our ancestors and the entity. Most of the knowledge was lost, but we preserved what we could, developed defenses in case it ever returned. And you kept this from your allies. High Commander Urtak's massive form loomed over her, all four arms tensed in anger. Would you have believed us? Elena challenged. Would any of you have accepted human claims of fighting an ancient cosmic threat with technology you couldn't explain? Or would you have accused us of fabricating a story to justify military buildup? None of the representatives replied, their silence damning. We have one last option, Elena continued. A signal that can disrupt the entity's core intelligence, not just damage its physical form. But we need your help to deploy it. Why should we trust you now? Grand Minister Tholo demanded. Because, Elena said simply, if we fail, we all die. And if we succeed, you'll have access to the technology we've kept hidden. Full disclosure, as promised. The alien representatives exchanged glances, a silent communication passing between them. Finally, Elder Vexili spoke for the group. We will assist with your plan, Commander Reyes. But when this is over, Earth will answer for its deception. Elena nodded, accepting the terms. Lieutenant Cato, transmit Operation Lazarus protocols to all Allied commanders. As the tactical data flowed to the Allied ships, the reformed entity resumed its advance toward the fleet, moving more cautiously now, but with clear purpose. It's learning. Ambassador Nim observed, adapting to our tactics. Then we'd better be quick, Elena replied. All ships, prepare for synchronized quantum broadcast on my mark. The entity surged forward suddenly, tendrils lashing out toward the Terran section of the fleet. One tendril struck a cruiser, its quantum shields failing under the focused attack. Within seconds, the ship was engulfed, its crew and systems absorbed into the dark mass. Mark, Elena commanded. Throughout the fleet, ships activated the transmitted protocols, broadcasting a complex quantum signal at a frequency that human scientists had decoded from ancient ruins beneath Earth's oceans, a signal designed to disrupt the precise type of intelligence they now faced. On the view screen, the entity froze. Its amorphous form rippled with visible distress, tendrils withdrawing and coiling in on themselves. Within its mass, lights flickered as assimilated systems rebelled against their integration. It's working, Kaido confirmed, monitoring the sensor readings. The entity's coherence is failing. The alien representatives watched in stunned silence as the ancient threat that had nearly overwhelmed them began to disintegrate, not breaking apart as before, but truly dissolving, its structure unraveling at the quantum level. Then, without warning, the entity vanished, not destroyed, but translated into another dimensional state, leaving behind the husks of partially assimilated ships floating lifelessly in space. The bridge erupted in cheers and exclamations of relief. Elena allowed herself a moment of satisfaction before turning to face the alien representatives, whose expressions ranged from gratitude to suspicion. The immediate threat has been neutralized, she announced. But we have much to discuss. Indeed we do, Commander, Shkar replied. Hood partially expanded in a gesture that was neither friendly nor hostile. Beginning with how humanity came to possess technology that predates our civilizations by millennia. Elena nodded gravely. It's time for humanity to share its full history with its allies. For better or worse. As the representatives filed out to contact their governments, Lieutenant Cato approached Elena privately. Was it truly gone, Commander? The entity? Elena's expression darkened. No, But we've bought ourselves time. Time to prepare for its return. Because it will return, Kaido. And next time, we'll need to be ready with more than ancient secrets. Around them, the combined fleet began recovery operations, retrieving the abandoned hulks of assimilated vessels. The alliance had held, if barely, but the political fallout was just beginning. The galaxy would never be the same. Humanity's Gambit. 2 weeks after the battle at New Terra, Commander Elena Reyes stood in Earth's most closely guarded facility, the Lazarus Complex, buried 3 kilometers beneath the Pacific Ocean floor. Around her, representatives of the 5 galactic empires gazed in silent wonder at technology no outsider had ever been permitted to see. The central chamber housed a massive crystalline structure, vaguely pyramidal, but with surfaces that seemed to exist in more than 3 dimensions. It pulsed with a soft blue light that cast eerie shadows across the assembled dignitaries. 30,000 years ago, Elena explained, a research team discovered this artifact while exploring underwater caves near what is now the Mariana Trench. We believe it was placed there by our ancestors, humans who fought the entity during its first incursion, and somehow drove it away. Elder Vexili approached the artifact, their crystalline form resonating with the structure's energy. This technology, it shares principles with luminar crystal matrices, but far more advanced than anything we've achieved. That's what makes it so remarkable. Elena continued. It incorporates elements from all 5 of your civilization's technological bases, quantum computing similar to Medusan designs, resonance fields reminiscent of Raxian energy weapons, crystalline matrices like the Luminard use, biomechanical interfaces similar to alizarin technology, and structural principles that resemble Barathi architecture. Impossible, High Commander Urtak rumbled. Our civilizations had not even achieved spaceflight 30,000 years ago. Precisely, Elena said, which suggests that either the artifact is of non-human origin entirely, or your ancestors had contact with our precursor civilizations, Ambassador Nim finished, the collective intelligence quickly grasping the implication. Elena nodded. We believe the entity has visited this galaxy many times over millions of years. Each time, it assimilates the most advanced technology it can find, then retreats to process and evolve. When it returns, it's more powerful, more adaptable. And you believe our civilizations are descended from survivors of previous incursions, Grand Minister Thillo stated, feathers shifting through thoughtful blues and purples. It would explain the compatibility of our technologies despite our completely different evolutionary paths, Elena confirmed. And why the artifact contains elements familiar to all our species. Ambassador Ishkar moved closer to the structure, hood extended in a rare display of curiosity rather than threat. If what you say is true, why did humanity keep this secret? Such knowledge could have united our civilizations centuries ago. Elena's expression hardened. Would it have? When humans first achieved interstellar travel and encountered the Barathi, we were nearly annihilated because you feared our expansion. When we established contact with the Vraxians, you tried to quarantine our entire species because you considered us unpredictably dangerous. She gestured to the artifact. How would you have reacted if we claimed to possess technology from before your civilizations even existed? Would you have believed us, or would you have united to eliminate the potential threat we represented? The alien representatives exchanged uncomfortable glances, unable to deny the truth in her words. But now, Elena continued, her tone softening. Circumstances have forced our hand. The entity is gone for now, but not destroyed. It will return, stronger than before. And when it does, our only hope is to stand together with complete transparency between us. What exactly is this artifact? High Commander Urtak asked, her massive form casting shadows across the crystalline structure. We call it the beacon, Elena explained. It's both a warning system and a weapon. The quantum signal we used in battle was only a fraction of its capability. At full power, It can generate a dimensional rift that would banish the entity permanently, but the energy requirements are beyond anything a single civilization could generate. That is why you revealed it now, Elder Vexili observed, their facets refracting the beacon's light. You need our combined resources. Yes, Elena acknowledged. Earth has been preparing for the entity's return for generations, but we've reached the limits of what we can achieve alone. The quantum shield technology, the disruption signal, they're temporary measures at best. Ambassador Nim's collective form shifted thoughtfully. The Medusan Harmony possesses zero-point energy extraction techniques that could supplement your power requirements. The Luminar Conclave can enhance the crystalline matrices to improve energy efficiency, Elder Vexili offered. One by one, the representatives proposed contributions their civilizations could make. Technological capabilities they had previously kept secret from each other, just as humanity had its own secrets. The beginnings of true cooperation were forming, born from desperate necessity. Then Ambassador Ishkar, who had remained silent during these exchanges, suddenly reared up, hood fully extended. Deception. This is another human trick. All eyes turned to the Vraxian ambassador. Explain yourself, Elena demanded. Shikar's body coiled tightly, bioluminescent patterns pulsing with accusation. Our deep space sensors have detected a signal originating from this facility, a signal matching frequencies used by the entity. You're not fighting it. You're communicating with it. The chamber erupted in chaos as the other representatives demanded explanations, their tentative trust shattered. That's absurd, Elena protested. The beacon monitors for the entity's return, its design to call it back when you're ready, Shkur hissed. The Vraxian Empire has suspected humanity's true nature for decades. You are not potential victims of this entity. You are its advanced scouts. This is madness, Lieutenant Cato interjected, stepping forward. Commander Reyes lost her entire family when the Argodon was taken. Why would we sacrifice our own people? To maintain your deception, High Commander Urtak growled, moving to stand beside Shkar. A calculated loss to gain our trust and access to our technologies. Elena looked around the chamber, seeing suspicion replace cooperation in every alien face. Decades of mutual distrust couldn't be erased in a moment of crisis, despite her hopes. The Vraxian Empire withdraws from this alliance, Shkar announced. We will prepare our defenses independently. As does the Berethi Dominion, Urtak added. One by one, the representatives declared their intentions to withdraw, their brief unity dissolving before Elena's eyes. If you leave now, none of us will survive the entity's return, she warned, desperation edging into her voice. Perhaps that is what you wish us to believe, Shkur replied coldly. But we will not be manipulated any longer. As the alien representatives moved toward the chamber's exit, the beacon suddenly pulsed with increased intensity, bathing the room in brilliant blue light. A holographic display erupted from its core, showing the entity reforming at the edge of detected space, far sooner than anyone had predicted. It's returning already, Elena whispered, horror in her voice. The quantum disruption wasn't as effective as we thought. The representatives froze, their debate rendered momentarily irrelevant by this new threat. How long? Elder Vexili asked, their crystalline form vibrating with tension. At its current reformation rate and velocity, 4 days until it reaches populated systems, Lieutenant Cato reported, analyzing the beacon's data. Convenient timing, Shkar commented, suspicion unwavering. Helena made a decision. You don't trust us. Fine. Take the beacon. The chamber fell silent. What? Grand Minister Thello's feathers shifted to shocked yellows. Take it, Elena repeated. Dismantle it. Study it. Verify for yourselves that it's exactly what we claim it is. Earth will surrender control of the artifact to a joint committee from all 5 empires. She stepped away from the beacon. We're out of time for suspicion and political maneuvering. If you still believe this is some elaborate human deception, then take our most valuable technological asset and prove it. But do it quickly, because in 4 days, none of this will matter." The representatives exchanged uncertain glances, caught off guard by this unexpected offer. "And what does Earth ask in exchange for this generosity?" Scar questioned, hood still extended but slightly less aggressive. "Nothing except your cooperation against the entity," Alina replied. "If we survive, we can negotiate terms afterward. If we don't, well, ownership rights won't matter much." After a tense silence, Elder Vexili spoke. "The Luminar Conclave accepts these terms. We will assist in analyzing the beacon. The Medusan Harmony will contribute our expertise as well," Ambassador Nim added. Gradually, the other representatives agreed, though Shkur did so with clear reluctance. "Then we have work to do," Alina stated grimly. "Lieutenant Cato, prepare the beacon for transport to the neutral research station at Proxima Centauri. All 5 empires will send their best scientists to verify its function and prepare it for deployment." "Yes, Commander," Cato acknowledged, already coordinating with the facility staff. As the representatives departed to inform their governments, Ambassador Shkur lingered behind. "A bold move, Commander Reyes," the Vraxian hissed softly. "Surrendering your most powerful weapon." Alina met the ambassador's unblinking gaze. "Not surrendering, Ambassador. Sharing. There's a difference." "We shall see," Shkur replied. "But know this, the Vraxian Empire will be watching very carefully. At the first sign that our suspicions are correct." The ambassador left the threat unspoken. "Your suspicion is noted, Ambassador," Alina said calmly. "Now shall we focus on surviving the next 4 days?" 3 days later, the combined scientific expertise of 5 galactic civilizations had accomplished what would have taken any single species decades. The beacon had been thoroughly analyzed, its function verified, and its power systems enhanced beyond what humanity alone could have achieved. Now it orbited in the void between Earth and Mars, surrounded by the gathered might of 5 fleets, a last line of defense if the beacon's dimensional rift failed. On the bridge of the Defiance, Commander Alina Reyes watched the final preparations with Lieutenant Cato at her side. "Status report," she requested, her voice betraying none of the exhaustion she felt after 3 days without sleep. "The beacon is at 98% power and rising," Cato reported. "All 5 empires have contributed their energy reserves as promised. The entity will be in range in approximately 40 minutes. Alina nodded, studying the tactical display where the reformed entity was clearly visible, larger than before, its amorphous shape now structured in ways that suggested intellect and purpose. "And our insurance policy?" she asked quietly. Cato glanced around to ensure no alien representatives were within earshot. "The Phoenix Protocol is ready. If the beacon fails, Earth Command will execute on your order." The Phoenix Protocol, humanity's absolute last resort, a series of synchronized antimatter detonations throughout the Sol system that would create a localized collapse of space-time, destroying the entity but also rendering the system uninhabitable for centuries. Earth would be evacuated beforehand, its population scattered among distant colonies, but the homeworld would be sacrificed. "Let's hope it doesn't come to that," Alina murmured. The bridge doors opened as the representatives of the 5 empires arrived for the final briefing. Despite 3 days of intensive cooperation, tension remained high, particularly from Ambassador Shkur, whose suspicion had not entirely abated. "The beacon is prepared," Elder Vexili announced, their crystalline form glowing with energy absorbed during their work with the artifact. "When activated, it will generate a dimensional rift calibrated specifically to the entity's quantum signature. The power requirements have been distributed among our fleets," High Commander Urtak added. "Each ship will contribute a precisely calculated energy pulse at the moment of activation." "And if this fails?" Shkur questioned, eyes fixed on Alina. "Then we fall back and deploy conventional weapons in sequence," she replied, the lie coming easily. The alien empires did not know about Phoenix, and if all went well, they never would. Commander, the sensor officer called out suddenly. We're detecting unusual activity within the entity. It's accelerating. All eyes turned to the main view screen, where the dark mass had indeed increased its velocity dramatically. Time to intercept, Elena demanded. At current speed, 12 minutes, the officer reported, confusion evident in his voice. That's impossible. Ambassador Nim's collective form shifted anxiously. Our calculations indicated 40 minutes minimum. It's adapting faster than we anticipated, Elena realized. Prepare for immediate activation. All ships, power up your energy delivery systems. As the fleet rushed to prepare, alarms suddenly blared across the bridge. Multiple proximity alerts, the tactical officer shouted. We have vessels decloaking throughout the formation. The view screen shifted to show sleek, serpentine ships appearing throughout the fleet. Vraxian vessels that had been hidden among them, cloaked by technology the Empire had never shared with its allies. Shakar. Elena turned to the Vraxian ambassador. What is the meaning of this? The ambassador's hood expanded fully, bioluminescent patterns pulsing with triumph. Insurance, Commander. The Vraxian Empire will not risk everything on your beacon. Those ships are directly in the energy transfer path, Lieutenant Cato warned. If they remain in position, the beacon can't be activated safely. Precisely, Shakar confirmed. Our scientists have developed an alternative approach, one that does not rely on untested dimensional technology. Whatever you're planning, it won't work, Elena insisted. Our combined research confirmed the beacon is the only viable option. Your research, Shakar corrected, filtered through human interpretation. The Vraxian Empire has studied the entity's energy patterns and developed a containment field that will isolate it until a permanent solution can be implemented. Ambassador, Elder Vexili interjected, their crystalline form pulsing with alarm. Our analysis indicated that conventional containment would only strengthen the entity by providing more energy to assimilate. A risk we are prepared to take, Shakar replied coldly, rather than trust the fate of 5 civilizations to human hands. The tactical situation deteriorated rapidly as Vraxian ships moved to surround the beacon, their energy weapons powering up. They're going to destroy it, Cato realized. Elena turned to the communications officer. Open a channel to the Vraxian fleet. When the connection was established, she addressed the Vraxian commander directly. This is Commander Elena Rice of Earth Defense. Stand down immediately. Your actions endanger every civilization in this system. The Vraxian commander's image appeared on screen, serpentine form coiled in the traditional posture of combat readiness. We will not comply, human. The Vraxian Empire has determined that your beacon poses a greater threat than the entity itself. By all the stars, Grand Minister Thelo exclaimed, feathers bleaching white with shock. They believe we're activating a weapon against them, not the entity. The misunderstanding was complete, centuries of distrust culminating in this moment of fatal miscalculation. Entity approaching critical range, the sensor officer reported. 8 minutes to optimal firing position. Elena made her decision. All Terran vessels, defensive formation around the beacon. Hold fire unless directly engaged. She turned to the alien representatives. I need your help. Your ships must form a perimeter to keep the Vraxian fleet at bay until we can activate the beacon. High Commander Urtak hesitated. The Barathi Dominion has never fired upon Vraxian vessels. To do so would violate our non-aggression pact. If that entity reaches full strength, there won't be any pacts left to honor, Elena countered. One by one, the representatives gave reluctant orders to their fleets. Ships began to maneuver into protective positions around the beacon, creating a standoff with the Vraxian vessels. Vraxian ships are powering weapons, the tactical officer reported. Hold position, Elena ordered. Ambassador Shakar, I implore you, reconsider this action. There's still time. The Vraxian's hood remained fully extended, bioluminescent patterns pulsing with determination. The decision is made, Commander. The beacon will be neutralized. As tensions reached breaking point, Lieutenant Kato suddenly looked up from his console, eyes wide. "Commander, the entity. It's changed course." All eyes turned to the tactical display, where the dark mass had indeed altered its trajectory. Instead of heading toward Earth and the assembled fleet, it was now moving directly toward the Vraxian home system. "Impossible," Shakar whispered, hood contracting in shock. "It's selecting the least defended target," Elena realized. "With the Vraxian fleet here, their home system is vulnerable." The implications hit Ambassador Shakar like a physical blow. The serpentine form coiled tightly, all aggression replaced by naked fear. "We must return to defend our homeworld," Shakar declared. "The Vraxian fleet withdraws from this operation. If you scatter now, we lose our only chance to stop the entity permanently," Elena warned. "Once it absorbs your civilization's technology, it will be even stronger when it returns for the rest of us." "What would you have us do?" Shakar demanded, desperation evident even through the translation. "Sacrifice our homeworld." Elena looked around at the assembled representatives, then back to Shakar. "No, we adapt our plan. We move the beacon to intercept the entity before it reaches Vraxian space. That would require reconfiguring the energy transfer sequence," Elder Vexili pointed out. "The calculations alone would take hours." "We don't have hours," Elena acknowledged. "But we have 5 of the greatest scientific minds from 5 civilizations. We can do this." For a moment, no one spoke. Then High Commander Urtak stepped forward. "The Barathi Dominion will assist. Our computational arrays are at your disposal. The Luminar Conclave will provide our quantum engineers," Elder Vexili added. As each representative offered assistance, Shakar's posture slowly shifted from defensive to cautiously hopeful. "Why?" the Vraxian ambassador asked Elena quietly. "Why would you risk everything to save our homeworld after what we just attempted?" Elena's reply was simple. "Because that's the alliance we're fighting for. Not one based on suspicion and old grievances, but on mutual protection and respect." 6 hours later, the combined fleet had achieved what should have been impossible. The beacon had been relocated to the outer edge of Vraxian space, recalibrated for the new position, and powered up to maximum capacity. The entity, seemingly drawn to the beacon's energy signature, had adjusted course to intercept it, exactly as planned. On the bridge of the Defiance, now positioned alongside the Vraxian flagship in a symbolic gesture of unity, Commander Elena Reyes watched the final countdown. "Energy synchronization complete," Lieutenant Kaito reported. "All ships connected to the network. Beacon dimensional rifting sequence initialized." Around them, over 3,000 ships from 5 different civilizations worked in perfect coordination, channeling energy through a network designed by Earth scientists, enhanced by Luminar crystal technology, stabilized by Barathi gravitational fields, distributed through Medusan collective processors, and protected by Alizarin stealth systems. For the first time in galactic history, 5 civilizations had truly combined their capabilities toward a single goal. "Entity entering final approach vector," the sensor officer announced. "Optimal firing position in 30 seconds." Helena turned to the 5 representatives, who stood united on her bridge. "This is it. No matter what happens next, what we've accomplished today proves that we're stronger together than apart." "Agreed." Elder Vexili's crystalline form pulsed with harmonics of determination. "The Barathi fight alongside humanity with honor," High Commander Urtak declared, all 4 arms raised in salute. "The Medusan harmony stands with Earth." Ambassador Nim's collective form rippled with solidarity. "The Alizarin collective pledges its strength to the alliance." Grand Minister Philo's feathers shifted to resolute gold. All eyes turned to Ambassador Shakar, whose hood extended not in threat, but in formal ceremony. "The Vraxian Empire acknowledges its error and joins this alliance. Together we will triumph." "Entity in optimal position," Kaito reported. "Firing sequence ready." Elena took a deep breath. "Activate the beacon." Throughout the fleet, Thousands of ships simultaneously channeled their energy into the ancient artifact. The beacon pulsed with blinding intensity, its crystalline structure resonating with power beyond anything a single civilization could have generated. A beam of pure quantum energy lanced out from the beacon, striking the entity's amorphous form. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then space itself began to fold around the dark mass, reality warping as a dimensional rift formed. The entity thrashed wildly, tendrils of darkness lashing out in all directions. Several struck nearby ships, which shuddered but held thanks to their quantum shields. Rift stability at 70% and rising. Kaido called out over the rumble that shook the Defiance. Entity resistance stronger than anticipated. Divert emergency power reserves, Alina ordered. All ships, maximize energy transfer. The fleet responded instantly, power surging through the network. The beacon's glow intensified, the dimensional rift expanding further around the entity. Then, without warning, a tendril of darkness shot directly toward the beacon itself. Intercept trajectory. The tactical officer shouted. It's targeting the beacon. Before anyone could react, a Vraxian battlecruiser accelerated into the path of the tendril, taking the full force of the attack. The ship shuddered, its hull beginning to darken as the entity's assimilation process began. Vraxian vessel Eternal Fang has placed itself between the entity and the beacon, Kaido reported, disbelief in his voice. Ambassador Shkar's bioluminescent patterns pulsed with complex emotions. They sacrificed themselves to protect the mission. Honor their courage. The brave action of the Vraxian crew bought precious seconds. The dimensional rift continued to expand, now enveloping almost the entire entity. Rift stability at 95%, Kaido announced. Entity containment at 87% and rising. The view screen showed the entity being compressed, folded in on itself as the dimensional rift contracted. The assimilated ships within its mass began to separate, some drifting free as the entity's hold on them weakened. It's working, Alina breathed. With a final surge of energy from the fleet, the beacon reached full power. The dimensional rift collapsed inward, compressing the entity into an infinitesimally small point. And then, with a flash of light that temporarily blinded the fleet's sensors, the rift closed completely. Silence fell across the bridge. Status report, Alina requested, her voice steady despite the tension. After several agonizing seconds, Kaido looked up from his console, a smile breaking across his exhausted face. Entity signature, gone. Dimensional rift stable and sealed. We did it, Commander. It worked. The bridge erupted in cheers and celebrations, the representatives of 5 empires embracing each other in a moment of shared triumph that transcended species and centuries of mistrust. As the initial euphoria subsided, Alina addressed the assembly. Today marks not just the defeat of an existential threat, but the beginning of something new. 5 civilizations working as one, sharing technology and resources that we once jealously guarded from each other. She looked around at the alien representatives, no longer adversaries or reluctant allies, but partners. The question now is, what do we build from this foundation? High Commander Urtak stepped forward. The Berethi propose a permanent alliance, not merely military, but scientific and cultural as well. The Luminar Conclave supports this proposal, Elder Vexili added. Our combined technologies have achieved what none of us could alone. One by one, the representatives voiced their support, until only Ambassador Shkar remained. The Vraxian's posture was thoughtful, hood partially extended. The Vraxian Empire has maintained isolation for millennia, Shkar began. We trusted none, and none trusted us. Today, that policy nearly led to disaster. The serpentine form straightened, addressing Alina directly. We joined this battle out of necessity, but we will join this alliance out of wisdom. The galaxy is changing. We will change with it. Alina nodded, emotion threatening to overcome her professional demeanor. Then let this be the first official act of the Orion Concordat, 5 civilizations united in common purpose. As the representatives formalized their agreement, Lieutenant Cato approached Elena privately. "Commander," he said quietly, "Earth Command is requesting a status update on the Phoenix Protocol." Elena smiled. "Tell them to stand down. The protocol is no longer necessary." She gazed out at the view screen, where ships from 5 different civilizations worked side by side to rescue crews from the partially assimilated vessels that had been freed from the entity. "Today," she said softly, "humanity found something better than a last resort. We found equals. We found friends." In the void of space, where the entity had been banished, the beacon continued to pulse with gentle light, not just a weapon anymore, but a symbol of what 5 civilizations could accomplish together. The silent trade routes would soon be bustling again, carrying not just goods but knowledge, culture, and cooperation between worlds that had once regarded each other with suspicion and fear. The greatest threat they had ever faced had been defeated not by force alone, but by unity, a unity that would reshape the galaxy for generations to come. And somewhere in the dimensional void beyond normal space, the entity drifted, contained but not destroyed, diminished but not defeated. One day, perhaps centuries hence, it might find a way to return. But when that day came, it would not face divided civilizations scrambling to cooperate. It would face the Orion Concordat, united and ready. The end.